Vatuka! Ya, tumbo imba berek. Watite pa kufate taura tua.
unless you get organized, you get structured. And that is precisely what these people of Zimbabwe have shown. They watched in the last 4 months in the last 2 months of 2024, the mayhem in neighboring Mozambique. Nearly 400 people dying simply because social media was encouraging young people to be destructive, to be anarchists, to be nihilists in their own country. People of Zimbabwe could not countenance the prospect of that calamity befalling Zimbabwe. So yesterday, when people were expecting them to be out there in the streets, behaving like hooligans in Maputo last year, they decided to stay at home. They decided to be disciplined. They decided to watch the situation, because people who fought a war are always very careful about their next move. They want to know what the enemy is doing and what he is not doing before they make a move, because that is the discipline of war. And at the end of the day, there was total peace in the country. Those who have decided for the overthrow of the democratic order were disappointed. And today, they are putting on brave faces, trying to turn defeat into victory. It is the matter of their delusion which actually led them to the predicament of their failure yesterday. So I want to congratulate the people of Zimbabwe for maintaining peace, for maintaining order, and for maintaining faith in the leadership of President Cde Mutsvangwa, but more important, for keeping the gospel of the Zimbabwe revolution on the straight and the narrow. And we are now going to enter a period, a very exciting period in the development of Zimbabwe. In the history of Zimbabwe, a new chapter has been written before 31 March 2025 and after 31 March 2025. It's a watershed in the history of the people of Zimbabwe, another milestone in the store of achievements by the people of Zimbabwe. And as ZANU PF, we are very, very, very thankful of the maturity, of the discipline, of the restraint, but also of the caution which they viewed events as they passed, so that not a shed of blood is spilled for a cause which was at most quixotic. Here we had somebody patently drunk, every day coming on social media talking about how he wanted to lead Zimbabwe to a new future. A drunkard, every day coming, and he was being lionized by detractors, by social media. And then people of Zimbabwe were expected to follow drunken brooding and hallucinations into the streets so that they can remove order and the prospect of prosperity for chaos. The people of Zimbabwe said, no, we don't behave like that. There is something important in every insurrection, and it is called leadership. There is something important in every revolution. It is called leadership. If you can't provide leadership, people will not follow on anything. Even if all of you to now, I say to you, let's do something. You want to ask me, who is the leader? Because you want to have confidence with the leader before you can follow. Now, you tell me that people of Zimbabwe were supposed to have confidence in Blessed Geza and follow him. They didn't do that. They are much smarter than that. Maybe there were those who were behind him who didn't have the courage to come out into the open and say we are the leaders. But once you say you don't have the courage to come out into the open, you don't have the courage of your convictions. Why should the people of Zimbabwe follow you if you don't have the courage of your convictions? So even those who may have been in the shadows, they proved that their political judgment was wrong. But there are also foreigners who always cheerlead the prospect of Africa plunging into internecine disorder. Times have changed. The geopolitics have changed. The mere fact that in January a new president came into the United States, Trump, with a different vision from what America had espoused over the last 6 decades, should have been a signal to say the era of Ukrainian Maidan revolutions is over, because that was the template which was being used. The yellow revolutions of post-Berlin Wall collapse in Europe. That was the template which was being used here. But you can see what it has done to Ukraine. It has destroyed the country. And those who were the authors of that mayhem in Ukraine lost the election in America. And there was 180 degree about 10 by the American administration. You saw the drama in the White House between Zelensky and Trump. It should have been an indication to the foreign detractors and their local handlers that the times have changed. You can't expect automatic backing for any wayward behavior about changing governments in Africa to get backing from the White House. Perhaps it is very indicative that as soon as Trump came into power at Mondlane, the braggart of Maputo gave up and returned back home. It should have been indicative, because normally Washington is the country which supports that kind of wayward behavior. But he was told, and he read the tea leaves, and he went back home. And guess what? Last Sunday, I got a picture of him, the same Mondlane in Mozambique, the one who had caused the mayhem. Here is a picture of him. Do you see whom he is greeting? You can see the tall man who was here for the campaign. He is the new president, the young president of Mozambique, Chapo. So 400 Mozambicans died because of this Mondlane. And then last Sunday, he goes to make a handshake, looking for a job from President Chapo. Zimbabwean people would have been placed in similar circumstances, where people die for nothing, and then a politician survives. Then he comes afterwards to look for his own crumbs on the table of defeat. Some people were commanding this March 31 thing from the safety of South Africa. In the night, there are nightclubs comporting themselves with drinking and other nefarious behavior. And then they go on their social media and encourage people of Zimbabwe to go into the streets on their behalf. You are safe in Cape Town, you are safe in Johannesburg, and you want people of Zimbabwe to go on the street in your behalf. You think people of Zimbabwe, with their experience of their political maturity, they would listen to that? They wouldn't. So this is exactly what happened. People of Zimbabwe, we want to hail them. I also want, on this occasion, to give a pat on our state apparatus. It came out in full force to protect peace and order. And they proved that they are not a joystick for political daydreamers. This is a state apparatus born out of the pain of war. It knows its allegiance to the people of Zimbabwe. And somehow there was a belief that it is akin to any of the post-colonial inherited armies of Africa, which can be commanded from London and from Paris to go to State House and remove leaders. It does not work like that with our army. It is a revolutionary army steeped in the traditions of the people of Zimbabwe. It is not the army of Mobutu Sese Seko. It is not the army of Idi Amin. It is not the army of Bokassa. It is not the army of Ironsi and all those wayward African military leaders who pander for foreign interests at the expense of the people of Africa. No, it is not. And the president, to make sure that the state of apparatus was in safe hands, he made dramatic changes in the structure of our state apparatus. I want to congratulate the new leaders who were put in place as we approach 31. And they've proved their mettle by making sure that they are loyal to the President of the Republic, that they defend the interests of the people of Zimbabwe, and that they keep the professional traditions of our state apparatus intact. It is well respected all over Africa. So heads off to General Matatu. And congratulations too, as I say, heads off. Heads off to Comrade Shepard Mtamba at ZRP. And heads off to Director General Fulton Mangwanya at CIO. They assumed office in the nick of time at very short notice, and they proved their worth to the people of Zimbabwe, to the president who appointed them in those posts. And they made sure that Zimbabwe remains orderly and peaceful on what was supposed to be a fateful day. This is a salutary lesson to those who harbor the idea that they can personalize the Zimbabwe army. It is not. Why would you want to say that you somehow believe that you own the Zimbabwe army simply because you survived a war? Do we now assume that when we were fighting, you were trying to keep your life safe for the day when you can aspire to power? And how are you keeping your life safe? Because in war, it's a lottery of life. Anything can happen to you at any time. I went through that war, particularly for us who were in Mozambique. You cannot aspire to be president of the Republic of Zimbabwe in a war because you never know when you are going to die. You are much more preoccupied with the task at hand to fight for the freedom of the country. Now, if you begin to have illusions afterwards that you are anointed to become the leader of Zimbabwe simply because you survived that war, maybe you begin to question credentials. So those who were trying to think that the army of Zimbabwe can become a platform for the seizure of power, they have been proved wrong. That template does not apply to Zimbabwe. I also want to use the press conference to appeal to the Zimbabwe people to go back to work. Your president is at work. Your army, your police, your intelligence apparatus, they've proved that they can maintain peace and order in the country. Your safety is assured. There won't be any destruction of property. You can continue with your day-to-day activities, which make sure that they bring food to the table, they bring school fees to children who are going to school, and they make sure that your general welfare is maintained. Please, people of Zimbabwe, go back to work and proceed to work even harder with the confidence that the future of Zimbabwe remains orderly, peaceful, and very democratic, and indeed very constitutional. The Bible of Zimbabwe is the Constitution, not illusions of traditions. No, traditions are encapsulated in a constitution. Some people want to espouse that there are two strands in the history of the people of Zimbabwe. One is constitution, one is tradition. And they want to say tradition favors them. No, that's dynastic, that's monarchical. That's not the way Zimbabwe is run. Zimbabwe is run through the constitution, which is an expression of the vote of the people at the polls to choose who their leader is. And hardly 2 years ago, they chose President Cde Mutsvangwa. They gave him 5 years in office. He has to complete that mandate before the next decision by the Zimbabwe people to choose who is their leader. So let him go back to work and do what he knows best, which is to push the agenda for the progress of Zimbabwe. And like I indicated earlier, he's going to do wonders now that the cobwebs of detractors and their foreign backers have been shunted aside. He is going to be very focused, and he is going to make sure that the trajectory on which Zimbabwe has been on is maintained, but more than maintained, it is solidified so that Vision 2030 is eminently attainable. This is where we are going. So my appeal to the Zimbabwe people is that peace reigns in the realm of Zimbabwe. Please go back to work, knowing that your president is in charge, knowing that your state apparatus is there to make sure that there is peace and order, and knowing that the democratic ethos of the people of Zimbabwe are assured. We are a democratic country. You will get a choice to who becomes your leader according to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, according to the time periods which that Constitution stipulates, and you shall freely express yourselves as to the direction of your next leader. Nobody is going to be imposed upon you, as the president has indicated. You heard him time and again as we were leading up to this mayhem, saying, I don't own Zanu PF. It belongs to the people of Zimbabwe. It is not on me to dictate what direction Zanu PF should follow. He has repeatedly said that. This is under the clamor of those who were trying to say they have somehow a divine right to be anointed or to be the next leaders of Zimbabwe. He has steadfastly refused to take that direction. He has taken the party back to the people of Zimbabwe. And the people of Zimbabwe have embraced that message yesterday by making sure that the democratic tradition of Zimbabwe remains strong. They will not be abused to be involved in any wayward and unconstitutional changes of the leadership of Zimbabwe. They have a canon, and the canon is the Constitution of Zimbabwe. It is their Bible. So they are sticking to that Constitution, and their behavior yesterday lived and built up to that image of an organized, structured, democratic country. So assure, go back to work and proceed with whatever you want to do, knowing that Zimbabwe is going to make progress. I want to dwell on the leader of Zimbabwe a little bit more, so that your confidence, the confidence of the people of Zimbabwe, can be seen to be properly reposed. The president of Zimbabwe in the Second Republic, he has spared no effort to address the historical grievances, even those of minorities. And it is precisely his achievements in that area which made sure that those who were trying to appeal to minorities, to grievances of the minority, they got no response. There were shades of trying to say, oh, there's a minority in the west of Zimbabwe, there are historical issues about Gukura Hundi, therefore this is your time to come and then do this and do and that. But because the sincerity of the president has reached out to that constituency, there was no response. There was an appeal to try to use the grievances of the war veterans in this instance. But the president has even made up a league of war veterans. They are beginning to see that the marginalization of the First Republic is being addressed. They refused. I know, because we were at the forefront of the changes in 2017 as war veterans. We had a cause, but this time there was no cause. Even somebody falsely donning military fatigues at 70 years trying to say, I'm your leader. They didn't follow him. It was an outside figure thrust from Norway, trying to make sure it was a cut and paste operation. Anyway, when I told of revolutions and insurrections, Professor Jonathan Moore is right. History never repeats itself except in tragedy or in farce. And this attempt at a cut and paste operation about 2017, it turned out to be a farce. It was a farce indeed. So Marx was right that Professor Jonathan gets that quotation from Karl Marx. It was a farce because people of Zimbabwe are not interested in a farce. So an appeal to that constituency again failed. There was an attempt to appeal to youth of this country. But the people of this country see the tremendous energy which is being released by the president as big investments move into the country on a scale unprecedented in Africa. I mean, how many power stations are now being built from coal in Wanke? How many lithium plants have been set up? Everywhere there is progress. We are looking at the prospect of new towns coming up because of what the president is doing. Now, this generates hope among the youth. They know that, these are job-creating opportunities because they are creating a bigger economy. They want jobs from 7 to 5 every day. That is what a town is there for, jobs from 7 to 5. And when investments of the scale which the president is bringing to the country begin to materialize, young people see hope. The diaspora, they see hope in the president. That's why you see so much construction. So every and each constituency is seeing hope in President Mnangagwa. And then somebody sauntered